Mic test, okay, we ready. Okay. Alright guys, who's ready to show up and show out for their life? This guy right here. Oh my gosh. In this interview, which is long, so I don't blame you if you don't stick around for the whole way. But if you do, it's because that message, it was for you. Alright, I get to talk with Ashley, a yoga teacher here in Houston, and we talk about joy. And one word that I was wanting to define and I haven't looked up yet is tangentially, a roundabout, to come about it in a non-direct way. And oftentimes that's how we get to the place we really want to be, when we lose focus, and then that opening and widening of the periphery allowing us to hit it right on the head. So please enjoy. Thanks for sticking around. Subscribe. Okay guys, Dave Martinez and I'm with Ashley. She is a yoga teacher that I connected with maybe 6 to 7 weeks ago, and I just felt like her teaching style was so inviting to beginners, and at the same time for people a little bit deeper into their practice, she'll bring challenging elements to keep the students engaged, right? One of the 3 rules, the one that I always kind of remember, is that if you're falling, you're doing yoga right, you know? And so I hope that that you feel that you are a good teacher, because you are. And so you were asking me why I want to do this. Like, why do I want to share a piece of my everyday life? Is because, like, to me, like, this refills my well. When I come to the climbing gym, I feel that I have community and I have friends, and not only that, like, the mind-body connection that you were talking about earlier feels replenished here. I always feel lighter after I leave this building than when I come in. And so
I feel lighter like after I'm around my students and the people that show up. So yeah.
Exactly. So some things that stood out to me from your class last week was, how can we introduce joy into our everyday life, you know? And something that made me think of is, how can I be more present? How can I not be so fixated on a certain outcome that I have in my mind, and just be more willing to engage with what is there? You know what I'm saying? So in terms of yoga, and you say that you can relate with these people because you also have an office job. How can we do yoga without taking a radical life change? You know, how can we integrate it just where we're at?
Well, I think it's like almost everything, kind of like what you were saying, you want to be more present. Well, whenever we're in a situation and we're like, we feel new, or maybe like we're the only ones that maybe don't know exactly what's going on, just remembering that you're in a moment in time that is always there. Like, you're not in the future, you're not in the past, you're right there. You're right where other people have been, you know. And I think the purpose of yoga is to feel good in your body. So there might be some discomfort at first when you're sitting down and you have these imagined like things that you should be doing, but realistically, it's just about being in your body, and everyone is in their body, so you're already winning at yoga.
Right. If
you can breathe, you're doing it.
And you know what, something I was thinking of, and I wish I could bring credit to the author, but someone said, when has thinking solved any of your problems? You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of time where we're not having to take that action, and the action will come. But a lot of times it's easy to get into the loop, it's easy to get into these thinking habits, and getting back into our own body and connecting with that can honestly lead us in a direction different than what our mind is telling us at that moment.
Yeah. And like when you're, I don't know, I've gone to fitness and I've been a beginner at yoga before, and I think one of the biggest things that helped me is when I shifted my mind into asking, what do I want out of this experience? Like, what do I want to feel? Not what am I supposed to do? What's the right thing, the right way? But kind of putting my own needs first. I think that's why I love yoga, is because I don't run around every day putting my own health, like mental health and wellness first, but yoga is a time where I can remind myself to do that. So, yeah.
And it's one of those things that you can do anywhere, any place. And, right? It's something that you don't need anybody to do with you to participate. It's better. I mean, I feel more engaged when I'm in a class and I have a good instructor guiding me along, but there's also those kind of unstructured moments where you just play around, you know. And I think that you do a really good job of instilling that into us so that we feel like we can just play around, and it feels like we can tap into that joyous energy.
Sorry, Lauren.
I wanted to, so I was at the library, and this book stood out to me. It's called A Fierce Heart. Yeah, by Spring Washam. And she's got a lot of anecdotes. How do you say this?
Antidotes?
Yes. Thank you. And so all of this is about, well, I won't try to summarize this, but in this particular passage, she's telling the story of this person who has to go into self-retreat for no other reason than that their life was falling apart and that nothing else made sense. You know, I feel that at some point in all of our lives, we are going to be in the fight of our lives. Like, it's a real struggle where we feel like we might not have hope of overcoming that. And it's kind of in that darkest place that that we can tap into that inner strength. And it sucks, like in this particular instance, I read a little bit, and she was talking about the love of her life ended up telling her that fell in love with another person, and then all of a sudden she had a huge physical ailment, you know, occur in her life. And so, like, there's a bunch of stuff. For me, it was different, you know, but I still ended up in a place where because of actions that I had taken, I had I allowed myself to find myself in this hopeless place. And I feel that if it wasn't for being in that hopeless place, then I wouldn't have learned the skills of, like, how to find, for me, my own self-worth, you know, because so much
probably learned a lot about yourself down there in the darkest part of your life, right?
Yeah.
Things you wish you didn't know, and then, like, things that you're like, wow, I survived that.
Exactly. And
there's a strength that comes when you come back up from something like that, and you can own the parts of yourself that you might hate a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, true. Like, the darkness is opportunity.
For sure.
It's just an opportunity. Yeah. And I love the places where you can show up. Mm-hmm. Being kind of, like, not okay, but showing up day after day. And it sucks. And maybe you don't show up.
Maybe you don't, you know. But I will say that those have been some of the times where I've felt the most connected with those closest around me. Like, that's the times where I put the most into the relationships and trying to understand, because of the shared gravity of a certain situation, because they're in it with you. you know, and
So you felt like a little bit more
connected, like with my parents, with my siblings, like getting to know each other again, doing life together again.
I wonder if it's because it's like harder to pretend when you're in a bad place. You can't pretend that you're like when you're really,
all the cards are on the table. Like
not sitting there
everybody
thinking, how
knows
can I
what
appear
happened. Exactly. And so I liked in that moment of time that all the cards were on the table, like the secrets. Just let me just tell you every single thing that I need to tell you.
Oh my gosh, I love that too. I was just thinking the other day, I think I overshare about things, but I love just speaking the truth of who I am. And sometimes it's awkward and weird and people are like, oh, I'm sorry, that's weird. And I'm like, it's not. It's who I am. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It feels good. It feels liberating.
Being able to go against the current and not just to be rebellious, but if that's a position that I can stand behind, then it doesn't really matter what is going on. You know, obviously taking people's taking people around us into consideration, but also me too.
Yeah.
You know?
I wonder if that is like a response to shame, and we just get like we feel the shame, you know, like so much over certain things that at some point it's just unbearable. The weight of shame is just unbearable. And I wonder if that truth is kind of like a way to fight shame daily. Like, I've noticed whenever I feel uncomfortable about something, even after I finish teaching class, I'll be like, well, I messed that up. I forgot to teach one side. That person said their wrist was hurting. Did I mess them up? And, you know, like I'll walk away and have these moments of shame. And then I have to, sometimes after class, I have to like sit down and do a whole nother, you know, like meditation or breathing, or I, you know, clean, because that helps me think and process and be like, okay, you know what, you're a human being. You don't need to feel shame about that, and you do right now. And where is that coming from? And I don't know. It's just all like a giant exploration of this inner landscape and how it connects to other people's landscapes.
And that inner voice can sometimes be great and positive, but sometimes it can be really mean to, and that's not necessarily us, you know, like I don't know where it gets its ideas, but it can just be so down talk, like, and it's not really the case. And I think what you always remind us is to kind of forgive ourselves and just accept where we're at that moment, especially getting in tune with our bodies, because sometimes we want to do something that felt good the other day, but today we're not there. Yeah, it's not there yet. So
well, that relationship with your body is really, it's another reflection kind of, you know, you can see your shame when you try to do something outside your comfort zone physically, and you're like, wow, I can't do it. I feel like such an idiot. Like, that's a normal thought process, I think, for a lot of people. Have you ever thought anything like that? Like, I've gotten better, but I feel like that should be pretty good.
No, for sure. You know, for me, my own self-worth, having an opinion and not just being able, so what I'm saying is mine is a little bit different, but at the same time I can relate, right? Because it felt like I don't want to be in a conflict. I want to do everything I can do to avoid the conflict, to like not even have a preference. I'm just out of the way, you know? And that would make me feel that that I don't have a voice. And then sometimes I would just find myself in situations I don't want to be in, just because
because you're like avoiding.
Yeah, exactly.
You're avoiding to the point that you're somewhere you were trying to avoid anyway.
Exactly. Can I take this phone call?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us in this conversation, guys. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Ashley, please drop a comment in the comment thing below, and we will get answers.
You already started recording?
Yeah. I appreciate that. My sister's boyfriend was asking me about, he was crossing the border, he was going to Mexico, and I always go through the land border. So he's like, where do I go to get the insurance?
What am I supposed to do?
Well, yeah, it's confusing. It's not obvious. And that's the thing. So like something that becomes so intuitive and natural to you is like not a skill set that other people have, and it's so easy to forget that. And that's kind of what I want to do with the videos, is like try to showcase a space that brings a lot of life into my life, and that is accessible to people to come, you know. And you know, at some point I want to go around and just as it comes up, you know, talk to people. How did you make your first friend at the rock climbing gym, and what was that experience like, and what were you most excited about, or what were you disappointed about, and just to kind of understand the community. It's a great thing, you know.
I love that it's like people are coming together and they're doing an activity where like you're probably gonna fall often. You're not going to be great at it to begin with, you know. You kind of have to suck, and then like when you just accept that, I think it's a little easier to be a real person, like be your real self around other people, instead of like thinking through all the different iterations of how things look, and you know. But doing things in your body feels like really good too, because you're not just showing up and, you know, hanging out. And I mean, I'm sure checkers is really nice, or chess. I don't know how to play chess, so I wouldn't know, but I know there's like mental games there, right? And there's mental stuff on the wall, but it's like between you and the wall.
Definitely.
And then you have other people that are like, yeah, I get it.
And sometimes whenever you feel like you want it so bad, but you just can't put it together in that moment, and just having to sit with that and just, okay, you know, like, but I'm coming, like I'm keep on coming back, and it's one of those things where I read it, it's a lot of our goals, we can't get them directly. They have to come around like in an indirect way, just by just like to returning to that moment and the experience of sometimes when it's hard, it's really because there's a lot of learning still that we need to do on a specific thing. And for me, it's so easy to get frustrated and just kind of get into the thinking thing. And what's cool about the climbing is that it pulls you back into your body, or it has that ability to, you know, you'll see the way different climbers deal with the mental challenge, and I feel like that's the most important part of the game, probably any sport or any, you know, pursuit.
Yeah, Simone Biles taught us that.
Exactly. You know, and that's interesting. There's so much commentary about Simone Biles, and you know, we all have an opinion as an outsider. I don't know what was going on. All I know is, like, as a viewer, I felt like she was going through a very difficult moment, and she conducted herself with a lot of poise. You know, knowing that the attention was going to be focused on how she went about that moment. Would become one of the main dramas of the Olympics. Would become not it's like a winning moment doesn't just happen because we get the gold medal. It's like when it draws our attention to something that can inspire us too, you know, because at the end of the day, we all have moments where we fall, or like we get tripped up, we overthink it. You can be the best and still not be able to do it that day.
Yeah. Wow. Being human. Imagine that. Imagine like having a whole brain and body that like do its own thing sometimes, you know?
Exactly.
I was kind of thinking, like, I bet that was hard for her to do. Just saying, like, passing up on something, especially she's a competitor, so she's used to competing. And I just know how awful it feels for me when I like pass up, when I'm going to yoga and I pass up one challenging pose, because I know like if I do this, it's just really gonna be the last thing my wrist can handle, so I have to pass it up. And then the whole like after that for a minute or two, I'm sitting there like, man, I really wish I'd done that. Everything else is warmed up and could do that, and I just have that whole wrestling thing. But on that level, that's got to be like a hard call to make. I think it'd be harder to say, no, I'm going to stop than to say, I'm going to keep going, you know?
Right.
I don't know what her experience was, but for me, I think that might have been the case.
Yeah.
And then the reactions, too, were crazy to me. Like, why do we care so much? You know? What is that? It's just funny to even watch my own reaction, like was through my own experience. I just said my own experience is how I translated what Simone Biles did. And then you hear people like, she's such a quitter. Well, like, how much did you hear that in your life? That you're thinking that about an Olympian, that you,
like a champion.
You may or may not watch the Olympics, and you still want to say that, you know? Like, it's just, it's incredible to me how everything's just a reflection of what's going on in here.
For sure. And you know, I think looking back in history, it's whenever we'll be able to see things in the most clear, objective perspective of like what was going on, you know? And it's a lot to process, for sure. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing, you know, the most precious thing that you can, your time. I appreciate it. Do you have any projects that you'd like to talk about?
I don't have any projects that I'm creating to share. I'm doing possibly an art exhibit in Tomball at Wild Spirit. It's the yoga studio I was trained at.
Okay.
They incorporate a lot of art and other things into their yoga space, which I think is really cool.
Is that something you want people to go out to?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be down for that.
When is it happening?
We haven't set a date yet.
Okay.
We're looking at sometime early next year.
Very good. Okay.
But yeah, other than that, I'm just doing like a lot of personal stuff. I want to keep educating myself. You know, getting certifications here and there for things that I'm passionate about. I just love sharing what I do, so.
And you do it very well. So keep it up. Don't stop. It's an inspiration to us to see someone living out the things that you're choosing to want in your life. You know, you're choosing those things to be there, and then you're open to the opportunities. And so thank you so much.
I keep showing up because I'm encouraged by people like you who keep showing up. So
thank you.
I mean, I do it because I need to be around other people and be reminded to keep showing up, just like everyone else. So it's encouraging me to be doing this. It's kind of selfish, and I don't mind saying that.
Yeah, it's a good thing for me. And we didn't. So we were kind of talking about. You were talking about shame, and I was talking about self-worth. And if you want, we can close out on that discussion. So, and that's a painful thing to think about. It's like that I don't have preference. So at certain points when you know, if I lose a job, if all of a sudden I get hurt and now I'm not climber, I can't climb, like, oh gosh, like what do I do now that everything's changed, but I'm still me? And
that would be rough.
But it happened.
I've thought about that.
It happened.
Getting in a wreck or being really sick, you know, not being able to breathe well. But I think I think there's a part that everyone has inside of them that is they're born with, and maybe it doesn't always show, and that you develop into being able to show that part of yourself. I think everyone has like a core, a compass, something unique about them, and I don't know, I guess life might kind of just be about being that core part of yourself as much as you can, like as authentically as you can. At least that it's less painful when you can show up as that part.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that little part that doesn't change, that's just you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's I'm still learning who she is. And sometimes we avoid out of shame getting to know that person in there. But so far, I've not ever been disappointed in who I've learned I am. So I'm gonna keep doing it.
You're doing it. You're an awesome person. Great teacher. I'm sure amazing friend. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of time and insight with us. If you ever want to do so again in the future, I would, enjoy that. If you have any thoughts that come about or any sort of thing, because sometimes, so another thing is that, like I've been willing to embrace the conflict because I feel like so long as my own inner peace is not disturbed, then I can deal with the external conflict a lot better. And how to do that, sometimes I don't, sometimes I miss, but yeah.
Peace is such a balancing act. Sometimes I think I'm literally walking on like a fence or something, and I just sometimes feel I'm out of balance. And then you have to take another step and wobble a little bit.
Yeah. Like when going for the moon pose?
Yeah, half moon.
Half moon. This one, I feel like I start thinking about it. I'm like, I want to do it, so I'm going, and sometimes I'll just be caught in the in between of like not quite in balance, right?
And then you're like, okay, you can kind of notice like, oh, my brain was really like, where are my toes pointing? Where's my other foot? Am I engaging? Should I twitch this muscle? Would that help? And then sometimes that just makes you fall.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're like, oh no, that felt so natural. I didn't even think about it. Isn't it funny? Like,
yeah.
And then also like the way like, oh, you start holding your breath here, and then like, well, maybe if I breathed, I couldn't stand there for a while. I don't know.
Just in general, maybe if I just breathe.
Yeah. Maybe I just breathe.
Yeah.
I'll stay there or fall, But it's fun how even like up dog can start when you kind of come up. That lifting of your chest, you can apply that to half moon. And you can apply those side twists to half moon because you're twisting, you're spreading your shoulders apart. So like all these poses kind of link together, and sometimes like all your strengths might come together and you nail a pose, and sometimes like maybe you're really good at balancing on your leg, but half moon doesn't work out because there's some area that you're just like, maybe you've never moved a certain muscle that you need to move in that moment, And it just takes time to like feel into that. And that's what life is though. You're just feeling into things. And
getting
moving
unstuck,
around and breathing and being awkward and falling and nailing it sometimes. And at the end, when I'm in Shavasana at a class, that's when I'm like, I need to be here more in life. I need to be sitting in Shavasana in life. Like, I need to have these moments where I'm able to be still in my body and be like, you're all right, Ashley.
You are.
Oh, right. You're good. You're better than all right. You feel great. You feel relaxed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so appreciative. You took a lot of time out of your day to do this, and
I will always talk about yoga and do that about yoga anytime. And one day, I can point the camera back at you and talk about comedy.
Okay, yeah, you told me Siphon. So I'm gonna figure out the day to go, and I'm just gonna start going.
Totally. I'll pull up
So I told Ashley that my deepest burning desire is to do stand-up comedy. Like, I don't know why. No, I know exactly why. Because I want to be funny. I want to be able to be in the moment and just enjoy the fact that that I can do it. You know?
How is that your medicine? Because you're craving it. So how is it your medicine?
Okay, because I feel like I have like a giant inside of me, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like so many times, like, I just put that guy to sleep because I don't know if he's like going to fit in the situation, you know? So I'm sometimes like doing like conforming and like all out of whack, you know? But me just kind of being like, okay, this is me and my presentation to the world, you know? And if it's funny, if it makes you laugh, so be it. But I think the medicine for me is the willingness to just kind of
show up in greatness.
Yeah.
And maybe fall flat on your face, but believe in yourself.
Exactly. And it's part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the polishing thing.
Yeah.
So here it is. I'm gonna flip this and see it. So it's comedy night at Siphon Coffee, Monday, August 16th. That was my birthday, actually.
Happy birthday.
I hope they do it.
I think they do it once a month. Yeah, pretty sure.
Well, thank you.
Your medicine.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I appreciate
all
it.
the little joy signals.
Definitely, I feel like I'm being more myself. The more I kind of follow that, because it's not so much about being good at it, but just the act of wanting to do it because, you know, because there's no reason.
Yeah, I heard a quote today, and it was on, it's called the Expanded podcast, but it was in relation to making money, but I think it also kind of applies to what you were saying. And the quote is something to the effect of, the world is full of shy millionaires.
Yeah.
So nobody, like, we're not all millionaires because we're so shy, but like if we just kind of like showed up to what was like really true in here, imagine what the world would be if we all just showed up like really authentically in what we were passionate about, you know?
Which is scary. It's scary to do that. It's scary. Like when I first asked you to do this interview, I was scared. It felt like to me jumping over a cliff, like that moment of like running up, and I felt like in that moment feelings of hesitation, of like self-doubt, like what she's gonna be thinking, why does this guy want to do this, like you know, and those are just not you saying, but that's just in my mind. And in less than a second, like from where the idea was birthed to the moment that it was coming out of my mouth, all these things, and so then I felt a little bit awkward and clumsy when I went about doing it. When sometimes if I don't have like an objective, then it's more natural, you know, it's more
But you know what I will say, my impression was when you asked me, I was like, I feel like because I have that desire inside of me to show up to myself, I feel like I can recognize other people that want to do that, you know, just kind of like intuitively feel it a little bit. And that's just what I thought. I was like, this dude's showing up for what he cares about, his life. He's like putting effort into showing up, and that's like a mission he has. And so
you're thank you for saying that. And that's it, you know. I want to be able to tune up and meet people where we're at, and just have more conversations like these, you know, because it's a gift, you know, it's a gift to be able to be around people that inspire you. And I just appreciate you very much, Ashley.
I appreciate you.